Let's go live. Okay, so yes, we have did it until the services section. So we'll resume it from there. And okay, what do you think? What do we have here? Do we have a container or container fluid in this section? Is it a container or container fluid? Come on, I hope that you guys haven't forgotten about it. Yeah, container. So we'll have a container and we'll go with PY or just P XL5, meaning that we would have a padding of 5 on extra large screen, and we'll just have a padding of 3 on anything that is smaller than extra large screen. Okay, so then we have this heading. So this is H2 with text of sender and FW bold, and we have text of capitalized, no, not capitalized, uppercase. And then we want to have this color, and we have made a custom class for that. And what was that custom class?
Text blue.
Yeah, good, it was text blue. Text blue, and inside it we have work progress. Save it, and after this we have a paragraph that is in the center, and it will have a margin of 2 from up and bottom, and it will have a text of secondary, and this is perfect. We have this all of the things set up now. Okay, so what should we do with this one? What do we have here? Like, all of them are side by side, but if I were to make my screen smaller, they go in a column wise direction. So on the bigger screen or larger screen they are side by side, and when it reaches the medium screen they are now on top of each other. So what should we do? What should we do in order to make them go side by side? A row, good. After the paragraph we'll have a row. And how many columns do we have inside this row? How many columns do we have? And how many columns does each card is taking? We have 12 columns, yeah. And how much each card is taking? If there are 12, it'll be 4. Yes, it'll be 4. So 4 for this one, plus 4, 8, and then plus 4 we have 12. So we'll go with Paul dash LG dash 4, and inside this column what do we have? We have studied something new in the previous class, so a new class. So what is this? No, this all of this, like this, a card, yeah. So we'll have a card, and this card is gonna have, not yet, this is just going to be a card, and all of these cards are same, so we'll just make one card and we'll just copy and paste the others. Okay, so inside this card we have this image, and this image is gonna have a width of 100%. Okay, let's see. Yeah, perfect. Now we don't want to have this border on this card, so what should we do? There was border 0, yeah, good. And now we want to have it take some shadow, like a big shadow. So what's shadow? And then I want to have a big shadow. LG, yeah, good. So we'll have this shadow. Okay, have I told you guys about these extensions where it basically gets you everything that Bootstrap offers? Okay, so have you guys installed it? That is really important. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so we have this image, and after this image we have this really good looking number, but we'll deal with it at the end. First, let's do this. Okay, so if you guys see, if I hover upon this card, this image becomes big, and all of this basically moves up. Yes. So what we should do is, we should make a parent for each of these elements. Okay, these elements should be inside a single parent, so that when we do the hover animation, so we just have to target only one div and not this heading and paragraph and these LIs separately. So we want to make a div that is going to contain all of this, so we can target all of them by calling that single div. So what we are going to do is, after the image we're gonna have a div, and I'll name it card content. Okay, now this div is gonna hold everything like heading, the paragraph, and the list. Okay, so this is h2. I guess this h2 or h3, this one, I guess it's h3. Text of blue, and it's bold. Yes, I think Mr. Adil is here. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, text blue, and it's bold, and we'll have the research and analysis, and then we have this paragraph. And what is the color of this paragraph? Secondary, yeah. So P, the class of text secondary, and perfect, yeah. Okay. And then I think this h3 is big as well, so let's maybe change it to h4. Yeah, now it's good. And then we have this. What is this? What is this element?
UL.
The UL. Yeah, good. So after the paragraph we're gonna have a UL, and inside the UL we'll have LI, and it's gonna say market. Wait, let me copy it. Data analysis, and then we have user feedback. Okay, now we don't want these bullets. So basically Bootstrap provides us with a class, and that is, have we discussed about this class? I think we have discussed about this. The class that basically removes your, and this AI is telling me what to do. The class is list unstyled. It's coming from Bootstrap, and it's gonna unstyle your list. But we want to have these icons with us. These icons, so they are basically, I guess, check, and before each list we're gonna have I with class of bi, and we're gonna have check circle class. So it's coming from Bootstrap. You guys can check it on the icons. Yeah. So now these icons have what color? Which color are these icons having? Info. Yeah, good. So text info or BG info? Is it going to be text info? Yeah, good. Text info. And perfect. Now we want to have padding in each of these sections. So what should we do? Like if I want to get everything inside here, what should I target?
Card content.
Card content, good. So P3, and perfect. Now these ones are also secondary, so I'll go here and I'll say text secondary. Perfect. And now comes the this number part. So for search and analysis we're gonna have a number. So before this h4 we are going to have a circle of fixed height and width. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to do internal styling, because I don't want to get into longer processes by giving it a class and then target it into external CSS. Is going to be a long process, so I'll just go with inline styling, and I'll give it a height of, let's say, 30 px, and width of 30 px, and I And what's the color of this one, this circle? What is the color for this circle?
Info.
Info.
Info. So BG info or text info?
BG.
BG. Yeah, good. BG info. Small. I should make it bigger. So maybe let's say 50. How do I do it? This one. How do I target multiple elements at the same time? What was the shortcut?
Control D.
Control D. Good. So yeah, it's good. Now I want to make it up into a perfect circle by using Bootstrap. So what's the class?
Ra-
It's rounded,
rounded.
and then
Pill.
pill is gonna make it into a pill.
Oh,
No, it did make it into a circle, but there's a separate class for the circle. So basically, it's rounded circle. Okay, it's coming from Bootstrap. Now I want to have a number inside it. Now, but there would be a problem here. I'm gonna say 0 1. I'm gonna make it bigger. So let me make it go into a paragraph, and I'll say class of fs for font size, and yeah, I think it's good. And it's gonna have a text of white, and it's gonna have fw b semicolon, and fs3 is too big, maybe fs5 or 4. Yeah, 4 is good. Okay, now I want to make this number go in like dead in the center. How should I do it? How should I make this number go right in the middle of its parent? We can use positions, but it's gonna be a longer process if we use positions. Think of something else, a better approach. Yes, it can be done with text center, but it's only gonna make it go horizontally. देखें इसको horizontal लेके आया सिर्फ. We want it to be dead in the center horizontally and vertically. So what should we do? Very good. So basically we're gonna do it with flex. So we'll go with deflex, and we want it to be on the center from the x-axis. So what's the property? What's the property for making something go in the center using flex on x-axis? It's justify
justify con.
content, and then center is the class coming from Bootstrap, and then on the y-axis, what is for the y-axis? What's the property for the y-axis?
Align items.
Align item center. Align dash items dash center. It's still not in the center because we have default margin of paragraph, so I'm gonna say M0, but it's still not in the center. Why is that? We have okay. The problem is these classes should be inside the parent and not the paragraph. Okay, so I'll just cut it from here, and I'm gonna put it in the parent because flex properties are always basically applied on the parent. So yeah, it's not perfectly in the center. Now what we want to do is, when I hover upon this, there are two things that is happening. So basically the image becomes big. So first we're going to do something with about this image. So I want to hover on this card, and then I want to make my image bigger. So what's the class I should target in order to apply the hover effect? What's the class I should target? Okay, if I were to target card, do we have only one card in our website? We would have multiple cards on our website. And if we were to apply hover on card, it's gonna apply that hover effect on every card in our website. We just want that hover effect only on this card. So what should we do? Very good. Make another class. So let's name it work card. Yeah. Yeah, we can apply hover on the container, but the problem would be that the hover would be applied on the entire parent. We just want the hover on this card. Okay, so for example, if you were to hover even between the container, between these cards, it's still gonna have that effect. We don't want that. Okay, we want that effect only on the card. Okay, so that's why we have to target the card. So give it another class so that we can target it specifically. So I'm gonna give it a class of work card. So I'll just go in my styles and I'll target my work card and I'll say hover. Okay, when we hover upon the card, we want the effect to be applied on what? When we hover upon the card, we want the image. So what should we do? We should say when we hover upon the card, I want the effect to be taken on the image. And then what effect do we want on the image? What is happening here? It's zooming in. What's the property for zooming in? Scale. Good. So we're gonna say when we hover upon the card, I want my image to scale. The default scale is what? What's the default scale for every element? 1. Good. It's 1. So we can say, let's say 1.1 or 2 or whatever you think is good. So yeah, it's getting big, but the problem is it's not having that pretty effect, like that smoothness. So what should we do? Transition. Good. Where should we apply the transition? On the hover or somewhere else? Should we apply transition on the hover or should we apply it directly on the image? Okay, wait. For example, if you were to apply transition here, and I'm going to say transition all and 0.9 seconds for the smoothness. So it's going to have that smoothness. But the problem is, if I were to take my mouse out of this card, it's going to snap back. Why is it happening? Because we've said that we want transition only when we hover upon the card. Okay, that is the problem. We want the smoothness when we hover upon the card, and when we take our cursor outside of the card, we want animation for both the cases. So that's why we should not apply this transition on the hover. We should apply transition directly on this image. So we're gonna say dot work card and then go get me the image that inside the work card and apply this transition on it. So it's gonna have a transition when we get our mouse inside the card and when we take our mouse outside of the card. It's gonna have transition in both cases. But there is a problem again. Can you see any problem here? Can you guys see the problem? What is happening?
The image is coming out.
Yeah, good. The image is coming outside of the card. We don't want that. So have we discussed about, I think we have discussed about this property. Like when we want to hide something that is getting outside of the parent. Overflow. Good. So basically we don't want anything to be overflowing from this work card. So we're going to target the work card and we're going to say overflow, that anything that is overflowing from you, just hide it. So I'm going to say hidden. So look, it's going to be contained inside the card. Okay. Okay, the first part is done. The image is getting big, and let's make it a bit fast. Maybe let's say 0.5 seconds. Yeah, now it's good. Okay, the second thing is we want all of these to move up. So what are all of these? They are targeted if we target only single thing. And what was the single thing? Card content. So basically when we hover upon the work card, when we hover upon it, we want the effect to be taken on what? On card content. So what is the effect that we want it to be taken? Like what's happening with this card content? It's moving up. Yes, when we hover upon the card, it's moving up. So how do we make something move up? Very good. Transform, translate. So we're going to say transform, translate, and we want it to move on which axis? Y. Good. And if you want it to move it up, is it going to be positive or negative? Negative. Good. So we're going to say 20 pixels. So yeah, it's moving up, but again the problem is it's snapping. We don't want that again. So what should we do? What should we do in order to avoid the snap?
The transition.
The transition. Good. Inside the hover or inside the actual element?
Inside the element.
Yeah, good. And what was that? What is the element that we want to apply transition on? It's card content. The card content, and then we're gonna say transition all 0.5 seconds, same as the image. So it's looking good. But the only problem here is this one is basically like in the middle of the image. Like if yeah, it's like in the middle of the image, and R1 is not in the middle of the image. We want this one to move up. So what should we do? We want to move this one. Where's the one? Here it is. Yeah, this one. We want it to move up. What should we do? Like by default it should be up. So we can put margin top, and let's say if I were to, let's say, write 1 2 rem, what's gonna happen? It's gonna push it down. It's pushing it down. We want it to move up. So what should we do? Minus. Good. We can just put minus and it's gonna go up, and perfect. Yes. But it's moving way too up. So let's say maybe when we hover upon it, it should be 10 pixels and not 20. Perfect. Okay, now for the other cards, we can just copy this thing down. So 1 2 3. Perfect. And we can just change the numbers. So the first one is saying 01, the second is gonna say 02, and the third one is gonna say 03. Perfect. And the best part is it's totally responsive, but again these are basically joining up. We want to have some space between them. What should we do?
Gap.
Gap. Good. So inside every card we want to have gap. So I want to select the next call LG4. So I'm gonna press Ctrl D and again Ctrl D, and I can say MY, meaning margin from top and bottom to be 2. And yeah, perfect. We have this gap now. Yeah, it's good. Okay, this section is done. Now let's move on towards the next section. Now this section is quite interesting, and the section after this is really interesting. Okay, so we want to make this. What do you see? A container fluid or a container? Fluid.
Container fluid.
Yeah, because it's taking up the full space of the screen. So let me collapse this section. Where is this section? Here it is. I'm gonna put a comment, and yeah, so we'll have a container fluid, container dash fluid, and we want to have padding, so P axle 5 and P3. Okay, so inside the container fluid, do we have a container or not? Or is just a container fluid?
Yes.
Yes, we do have a container. So we're gonna say container, and we want to give this one padding as well, because we want to have a lot of space from here. Okay, so inside the container, what do we have? They're side by side. So is it going to be display flex or row?
Row.
How do we know that? Like I did tell you about you can judge whether it's row or flex. And what was the shortcut? How can you judge? What was the rule? How can you judge whether it's being row used or it's flex? If it's changing on the smaller screen and it has some different layout on the bigger screen, then we know it's a row. But if it stays same on the smaller screen and bigger screens, that means it's a flex. So if I were to decrease my screen size, so is it changing? It is changing, so that
Yes.
means we have what? We have a row. So that's why we know it's a row. So we have a row. Okay, so how many columns are distributed? How are these columns distributed? How much is left and right taking?
10 to.
Yes, 10 and 2. So we'll say col LG10, and the second one is taking col LG2. Again, it's totally up to you. If you're saying it should be 9 and 3, it's totally fine. If you're saying it should be 8 and 4, again, it's totally fine. It totally basically it totally is up to you how you judge the columns. So first we have this H3 or H4, whatever you like. Where's H? And then we have this paragraph. And then we have this button. So inside the second column, we're gonna have a button with a class of what? What's the class for button?
BTN.
BDN, good. And we want to have this outline BDN. So the class for this is BDN outline, and then the color you want. So we want to have a light color. Okay, so basically light is kind of like a white, and it's saying call to action. So why can we see the button? Why can we
The
see the
color.
button? Because of the color, yeah. But the button is present here, but again because of the color we can't see. Okay, now comes the tricky part, and that is this image. So we want to have this image. So how can we apply this image? How can we do that?
And inspect it.
We inspect it. Okay, let's say we're gonna inspect it. First let's get the image, and then we can think about how we can apply it. So this is the image we want, and yeah, okay, I got the image. Now what should I do? What should I do now? How do I apply this image? Should I use, there are two ways to apply the image. There's one way is that we can use HTML, but again HTML is going to be kind of difficult because of, if we were to use them in an HTML, using HTML, we're going to put positions and a lot of stuff. We don't want that.
Or can we copy the link of it? Did we
I did copy the link
use
of the
the
image.
image as background?
Very good. We have to put image in the background. So if we were to use HTML to put the image here inside the container fluid, it's going to be a long process again, because we have to put positions and z indexes and everything. We don't want that. So we can just directly put the background image on this container fluid. But my question is, do we apply the background image on this container fluid, or is it going to be something else?
To the container.
If we were to apply the image on the container, what would happen is it's going to apply it to every container in our website, and we have a lot of containers on our
Uh,
website.
make another class.
Very good. We make another class. Okay, so we have to make another class. Good. So again the question is, do we make another class here or here? We want our image to take up the full space of the
In
screen.
the container.
We want our image to take up the full space of the screen,
On the fluid.
the fluid.
Oh.
Okay, so let's name it maybe like image section. So let's target the image section, and now you guys are going to tell me how do we get our images using CSS. What's the property? What's the property for applying images using CSS? Background image. And then URL, good. And then will you put parentheses, and then
The link.
no before
Comma.
the quotation
Inverted
marks,
commas.
and then the link.
Cool.
And we would have the image, great. But there is some, like, a big difference between this image and this image. Now you guys have to tell me what's the difference between this image and this image.
It's kind of blurred.
Very good. The other one is kind of blurry, whereas ours is not. So what's happening here is, if you guys were to pay a close attention to this one, it's like there is a layer of something on this image, like there's a proper layer or something here. Yes. So how can we apply that? Okay, before we apply that, tell me, have we studied about opacity, like opaque colors, like colors having some opacity?
No.
We haven't. Okay, so before we apply this color, this thing on our image, we need to study something else, and that is, let me make a dummy div here. I'm gonna give it a class of test. I'll target my test here. I'm gonna say it's gonna have a height of 100 VH. What is VH? What is VH? We have studied.
Viewport height.
Yeah, good. Viewport height, meaning that whatever the screen charges, take up that space. And what about VW?
VW was the width.
Yeah, so the viewport width, and we're gonna have it a background color of red. We're gonna give it a position of fixed. Okay, we want it to have a position of fixed. We want it to fixed. We want it to be fixed, and then we want it to be fixed from the top. Okay, can you guys see here? Like we have a div and it's fixated from the top. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to see through this div. Okay, I want to see what's behind this div. Okay, so how can we do that? Just like here, like there's a div and we can see through that div. We want the same thing here. Okay, so we can do that using again color. So instead of red, we want it to have RGB values. What is RGB?
It
It's
was for red, green, blue.
very good, red, green, blue. And we can put whatever number we want, but it should be between 0 and 250, 255. Okay, so if you want it to have a red color, the red should be 255 like the maximum, and the green and blues should be 0, so it's going to have a red color. Similarly, if you were to make red 0, and if you were to make this second one 255, is going to have a green color. But now what we want to do is we want to see through this color, through this div. So instead of RGB, we're going to put RGBA. What do you think A represents?
It means
Alpha.
Alpha. Good.
alpha.
Basically, it means alpha. So basically, alpha in color would refer to opacity, opaqueness of something. And what are opaque objects? I think we have studied about this in, I guess, 4th or 5th grade in science. What are opaque objects?
Like you can't see through them.
Exactly, you can see through them. So at the moment, the opacity of this color, the opaqueness of this is 1. Like we can see through anything through them. Okay, we can see anything through them. So by default, the opaqueness is 1. So what would happen if we were to reduce it? What's going to happen? What do you think? Now it's going to have that opaqueness, but it will be reduced. So if the opaqueness is reduced, we can see through it, and that's exactly what we want with our image. Do you
So
guys? Yeah,
this is smaller. It's a smaller value from 1.
it's basically it lies from 0 to 1. So the maximum is 1, like you can see anything through it,
So
and
like 1, you can see full, and then as it goes down,
yeah,
what if it was 0? It
what
would
would
just
happen
be
if it's
fully
0? What do you
visible.
think? What do you think would happen?
You would just see it.
Yeah, we wouldn't see anything. It would be there. Look, it would be there. I can use the hover effect. Look, it's not
Oh,
hovering.
invisible.
Okay, it's not hovering, but it is present there. Okay, it's invisible, but it is present there. Okay, so we want the same. Okay, so you guys get the concept of RGBA?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me remove this div, and we can get back to our image. Okay, so we want it to have a layer of that color here. So what should we use? Like we used just now, we used RGBA values. Okay, so how can we do that? There are two ways. So we can either make a div inside this container fluid and then target that div. Okay, again it's gonna be a really long process. So instead of that, what we can do is, now I need you to pay real close attention here. So instead of background image, I'm gonna put background. Okay, and then I'm gonna say linear gradient. Do you guys remember linear gradient?
Yeah.
What is linear gradient?
It was.
Yeah, I was what? It was
It was when those two colors mixed together.
exactly not just two colors.
Like
You can mix multiple
any
colors
any.
together. Okay, so in this linear gradient, we want to have a color, but with some opacity. So what should we use?
Sorry,
What's
can you repeat that?
Yeah, so basically inside this linear gradient we want to have two colors like these bluish colors, okay, but we want it to have some opacity, like it should be less opaque. So what should we use? Instead of just writing
Opacity.
blue, we don't want just write blue, we want it to have some
The
opacity.
RGBA.
Yeah, good. So RGBA, and for the moment let's put some random values, so maybe let's say 100 for red, 150 for green, and 50 for blue maybe. And for the last part, for the opacity, I'm gonna say, let's say 0.6, and I'm gonna put the comma. So this is our first color in the linear gradient, and for the second one we're gonna do it again, RGBA, and again let's put some random values. Yeah, and for the opacity we're gonna go with, let's say 0.8. Save it, and now we have this gradient, okay. But now we want to have this gradient as well as the image with it as well, okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go outside this linear gradient, but make sure you're inside the same property of background. So outside of this linear gradient, I'm gonna put comma here, and I'm gonna put my URL for the image. So what do you see now? We have the gradient, and behind that gradient we have our image, just like here we have the color, and behind that color we have our image, just like this. So did you guys get the concept, or should we repeat it again?
You got it.
Okay, great. But one last thing remains, and that is, first let me change the colors. So it is bluish color, so I'm gonna put 0 for the red, and red green, 0 for the green, and for the blue one I'm gonna say, let's say 210, and here 0 for the red, 0 for the green, because we want blue colors, and 255 for blue, and opacity, oh no, 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 it's too blue. So let me copy this color, let me inspect it, and we should have a gradient here. We're gonna copy this color, but again it's in the hex form, so we want to change it, so we can just click on here. It's gonna give us the RGB values. Keep on clicking until the RGB appears. So here it is, and I'm gonna put RGBA, change the opacity, similarly for this one as well. So again click here, make it go RGB, yeah, and then put RGBA, change the opacity, yeah, perfect. But I guess it's flowing from top to bottom, we want it to flow from left to right. So how can we do that? How can we make it flow from left to right instead of from top to
To
bottom?
right.
Very good, to right. In the beginning we can say to space right. Perfect. We wanted to have a white color, so inside the image section we can just put color to be white, and they're not aligned. The button is up as compared to the left section. So how can we do that? How can we align them? So inside the row, because row is flex, so we can simply say align items center. Yeah, perfect. Okay, one last thing remains for the button. The button is rounded and the border is thick. So what should we do? How do we make it go round, like full round? How can we do that? Rounded fill, good. And we wanted to have a thick border, so we can just simply put border here. It's gonna give it a border, but we want to have a thick border, so we can just say border dash 2 maybe, or 3, 4, whatever. 3 sounds good. Yeah. And from the x-axis we want to have more padding. No, 3 maybe. Yeah. And one last thing remains for the image. If you guys were to see here, if I scroll up or down, the image stays in its direction, like image stays where it is, it's fixed. Okay, whereas our image isn't, it's moving with the scroll. So what we can do is we can simply put after the URL, we can just write fixed. So basically this background is a shorthand property, like you can write everything that starts with background, like everything that has a background property, so it's a shorthand property. So if I were to scroll now, the image stays where it is, and yeah, that is it. Okay, let's move towards the next section, but this section is something new. And if you were to take a close attention, this section is kind of like a grid, and in order to apply this section we need to study another topic, and you can say it's one of the core topics, just like the flex. So we have to put a pause on this website for today, and we have to move towards the new topic. So do you guys have any problem until the image section?
No.
Okay, any questions? Any problem? Any questions?
No.
Okay, then we can move towards the next section, and this section is again kind of important, but not that important at the moment. But we have to study it in order to make displays like this. So the topic is grid. So what is a grid? Like generally, what is a grid?
It's like rows and columns.
Yeah, exactly. Good.
Like a table.
Very good. It's like rows and columns, just like here. We have some rows and we have some columns. Okay. So there's one of the fundamental questions that is asked in an interview, and that is, what is the difference between grid and flex? So the main difference, the main answer for this question is flex is 1D. That is, in flex you can either move in rows or you can move in columns, just as we have studied that it's by default the flex is in a row, and if you want to change the direction we can just say flex direction to be column. But at a single time, flex can either be row or it can be column, it can be both simultaneously. Whereas grid is 2D, that is two dimensional, like it can move rows and columns at the same time, just like here. Look, this image takes up two rows as compared to this image, like it's moving two columns and two rows simultaneously to this image. So basically when you want to have a display like an image gallery, like a 2D display, you are going to use grid. Okay, so we're gonna start easy, and I want you to pay again close attention here. So where is my go live? Okay, let me start it with the live server, and yeah, here we have grid. Let me close everything else. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to make a parent, and inside this parent I want to have child class, and then I'm going to have a child dollar multiply by, let's say, 6. Yeah, so I'm gonna have 6 children here, or maybe let's say not 6, let's say 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So 10 children inside this parent. Let me style it, and I'm gonna do internal styling. I don't want to make another file for it. Style, I'm gonna target the parent. I'll give it a width of, let's say, 70%, and a height of, let's say, 500 px, and the background color is gonna be red. Now I want it to go in the center. What should I do? What should I do in order to make it go in the center?
Flex.
Flex is for the inside. I want to make it go in the center from the
Justify
outside.
content.
That is again for the inside.
Aligned items.
That is again
Margin
for the
auto.
flex. I want to make all of this red box go in the center. Margin auto. Okay, so now I target each child, so I'm gonna say child, and I'm gonna give it a width of 100%, a height of 100% as well. Now let's say background color to be blue, or let's say this one. Okay, what happened here? What's happening here? I'm not gonna move forward unless you answer me this question. Like, what's happening here? Like, why do we have this really long div? Here's the code, here's the output.
I mean, the entire background area is purple.
Yeah, it is purple, but why is it overflowing? Like, we have a really long div here. Why is it overflowing? How many children do we have inside the parent?
And
10 children. And each child is taking up how much space? How much space is each child taking? Like, what's the height of each child?
100.
100%. So we have 10 children, that is taking like 100% of its parent height, that is 500 pixels. So each child is taking 500 pixels of height. So 10 children are gonna take how much? 5000 pixels of space. So that's why it's overflowing from the parent. So how do we counter it? We don't have to counter it. Inside the parent we just say display and then grid, and that's it. They're gonna be aligned according to the parent. But again, it's a single div. Why can't we see those 10 children here? Why can't we see those 10 children here? Like, we should have like 10 divs here, but again we're saying just one. The problem is there's no gap here. We're gonna say gap, and let me change the color. Yeah. So grid is not gonna do anything that Flex used to do. Like, it's not gonna arrange it in a row wise direction, because grid expects from us like how many columns do you want and how many rows do you want. So I'm gonna write a new property here. So for example, we want to have, let's say, 3 columns. So what we are going to do is we're going to write grid dash template dash columns. So this property is gonna assign columns to this red parent. Okay, so how many columns do I want? I said 3, so I'm gonna say 100px, 200px, and 300px. What does this mean? It means I want to have 3 columns. The first one is gonna be of 100 pixels of width, the second one is gonna have a 200 pixels of width, and the third one is gonna have a 300 pixels of width. If I were to save it, you guys are gonna see 3 columns. The first one is gonna be 100 pixels, the second is gonna be 200 pixels, and what about the third one? How much is the third one? The first one is 100, the second is 200, and the third one is 300. Okay, what should I do if I want to have 5 columns? What should I do? What should I do? I think you guys are not getting the concepts here. Wait, let me rewind a bit. What I did here is I made a parent, and inside the parent we had 10 children. Okay, and we have given the width to be 70% of the parent, the height of 500 pixels to the parent. Okay, then for each child we said that the width should be 100% of the parent and height should be 100% of its parent, and we've given it a color of blue. So at the moment each child is taking 100% of its parent, and that is 500 pixels, so each child is taking 500 pixels. So 10 child counts up to around 5000 pixels, so that's why they're overflowing from its parent. Now we want to arrange these childs according to its parent using grid, because we want to have a display. We are doing this because we want to have displays like this. Like whenever we want to make the displays like this one, for example, if we have a website and we want to make a display like this one, we have to use grid. And let's say this one, so this is achieved using grid. Okay, so that's why we are studying this topic, and the website we're making, it also has a section like this, so that's why this topic is really important. Okay, so we want to arrange all of these children according to the parents. So what we are going to say is, we're just going to say display grid, and that's it. All of them are going to be aligned according to the parent. Now we want to have some space between these children. What should we do? What's the property? Gap. Yes, so we'll just write gap, and let's say 1 row. Okay, now grid basically works on rows and columns, just like here. So we have 3 rows and we have again 3 columns. So we have to tell grid how many rows and how many columns do we want. So let's say we want to have 4 columns. So what should we do? We're going to go inside the parent and we'll say grid dash template dash columns. So this command is used to define columns inside the parent. We wanted to have 4 columns, so we're just gonna give the width of each column we want to have. For example, we want the first column to have a 200 pixels of width, so we'll just write 200 pixels space. If you want to have a second column, you're gonna again write the width of the second column you want, so we're gonna write 400 px. So I've just written 2 columns here. The first one is going to be 200 pixels, the second one is going to be 400 pixels. So what's going to happen is, the first child is going to go inside the first column, the second child is going to be arranged in the second column. Again, it's going to the steps are going to be repeated again and again. The third child again is going to into the first column. The fourth one is going to go inside the fourth column. Sorry, not the fourth column. The third one is going to go inside the first column. The fourth one is going to go inside the second column. So how many rows would we have? If we have 2 columns, how many rows would we have? Like we have 2 columns, 5 exactly. So first one is going to be 200 pixels, the second one is going to be 400 pixels. So what if we want to have 4 columns? So we'll just go here with a space and then write whatever width we want, let's say 100 px, and this time we're going to have how many columns? 3. And what about rows? How many rows would we have? First column, second column, and this one is going to be in the third column. First column, second column, third column. 4 rows. Good. Okay, so what if we wanted to have, let's say, 5 columns? So would we again write the space and the width and all of that? No. So there's a shortcut. We can just write repeat. Okay, repeat would mean that we want to repeat something. Now this repeat is going to take 2 things from you. The first one is going to be the number of columns you want to have. So I want to have 5 columns, and the second one is going to be the width you want to have. So I'm going to say, let's say 100 px. So it's going to give me 5 columns of 100 pixels of width. Okay, but again we have this space, a lot of space left here. So what should we do? We don't know how much space we have left here, so we can just write 1 fr. Fr would refers to fractional unit. It would mean that whatever space is available for each child, give that space to that child. So basically it's going to fill up all of that space. So save it, and now we have 2 columns because 5 columns, because we said we want to have 5 columns, and 1 fr would mean whatever space is available in the parent, just take it. So if you want to have, let's say, 3 columns, it's going to do what? It's going to have 3 columns that are going to take as much space as it is available to us, and it's going to make 3 columns. Here you go. If you want to have, let's say, 7 columns, it's going to make 7 columns, and it's going to have, each one is going to have a width of whatever the parent is offering. Okay, so let's do a little really simple project, and then we can end the class. And let's say we want to make this thing here. Now this one is easy. कितना टाइम रह गया? Okay, फिर एक काम करते हैं, let's study this topic again tomorrow, and until then please complete the Arsha until the portfolio section, like before the portfolio section, as much as we have completed today. Okay, and the deadline again is before the next class tomorrow. Okay.